Brant, who looked most notably different to you when you were attending OTAs? Where was that physical change where you literally saw it with your own two eyes and you were like, that's not what it looked like last year?
Okay. Obviously Trey. But the second guy was Talanoa. And I it's only been a little. Who is calling me? Fredericksburg, Virginia. Okay.
Unbelievable.
Sorry. That's terrible. Okay. Talanoa. I'm not saying he looked faster. And people are saying I can be a little too harsh on players, that I just like beat the drum over and over. And like last couple weeks, I'm like, he's slow. He's too slow. He might be too slow. I don't know. But I feel like let's give him some credit for something else. He looks way stronger. And a lot of times, like rookies, they look good on college film, and then they come to training camp, and you look at them with the Niner jersey on in practice, you're like, you look like a rookie, man. You look like you're not as strong as all these other grown-ups on the field. And it's like you can really tell. And then people say players make their biggest jump between year 1 and year 2. You really can tell. Some guys just come back like, man, you've been lifting the last 365 days. And Talanoa looks like that. He looks like an NFL player. I don't know if he's fast enough or good enough to be a starting safety in the league, but he definitely projects that he's going to do everything in his control to make it happen. Like he's a real pro. So it's something. And I noticed this with Fred Warner early on in his career. When they drafted him, I looked at him and I thought, wow, that's a skinny middle linebacker. By year 2, I was thinking, man, that dude is jacked. Super duper. And, Kittle was that way too. When they drafted Kittle, I was like, that's a skinny tight end. By year 2, I was like, that's the most jacked tight end in the league. So Talanoa looks like a guy who is on the, eating the right things.
Yeah. And it's not good when a player comes in and their jersey hangs off them like it does off my skinny ass. That's not what you're looking for. You want them to be a little more filled out than that.
It's inevitable. All the rookies, it's inevitable. Yeah. It happens to everyone. It's
because it's comparison, right? You're looking at players who have been in an NFL weight room for at least 1 year, if not multiple years, versus someone coming out of college where they've been attending school and playing football at the same time.
The only exception to this is Bosa. Bosa came in the league looking like he was 30 years old.
A machine.
He looked 30. And when he started playing, I think he got the reputation quickly as like the strongest pass rusher in the league. The strongest edge rusher. Like he was lifting guys off the ground.
Yeah.
What rookie does? He was 21. Yeah, super duper strong.
Let me just say this because it's an opportunity to acknowledge how special college players are to both go to school and play football. Yeah. I had trouble just going to school, Grant.
Me too.
I didn't have to play football.
Me too. I went to UCLA. You take 3 classes a quarter, it's 15 units. It's so hard. And what I did was I had like AP classes saved up, units from high school.
Yeah.
I saved until the end. And my senior year, I had 3/4 of 10 units each. And I was getting great grades. I was like, yes, 2 classes. I can handle this.
Relaxing.
Finally, I can do all the reading. It's so nice.
This Hufanga news, I mean, it strikes me as him doubling down on his strengths, right? You could say, hey, your weakness is your inability to cover the field because you don't have the speed of a traditional safety in that regard. But if you are doubling down on your strength of hitting people and being able to be there at the point of contact, be a bit of a Cam Chancellor type of enforcer out there, and to Jimmy Ward's comments of trying to download everything in Jimmy Ward's brain into Talanoa Hufanga so that they can play complementary roles, I have reason for optimism. I can see a specific instance where you play to Talanoa's strengths. Jimmy Ward compensates for some of those areas where he's not quite as strong. And together you have a good tandem that individually you may look at Talanoa Hufanga and say, well, maybe he shouldn't start on a top 3 defense in the league if you look at him on paper as I do and see him as such. But when I look at them together, I take a little more comfort.
Yes. And again, he's a lot like, he's in a very similar position to Trey Lance. Like, you're not replacing a Hall of Famer. Right. You're replacing Jaquiski Tartt, who is a good, not great safety. No disrespect. Good, not great safety. Like, what Jaquiski Tartt gets the most credit for is being a short tackler and not giving up big plays in the passing game. Talanoa should be able to do that. I mean, we'll see. But in the one practice this week, he gave up no big plays. George Odom gave up a big play. Talanoa and Jimmy had Trey Lance looking for the tight ends and the running backs over and over and over. That's a good sign, because my question is are the big plays going to start getting – are they going to be giving up big plays because of him, because of his lack of speed? If the answer is no, and he's just as good of a tackler as Tart, then there's no drop off.
Yeah.
And maybe he'll actually catch the long interception. Maybe he'll have some better ball skills. I mean, it's not a big bar. If he can be solid, he's a perfect replacement. And if he can be solid plus some playmaking, now you got an upgrade.
I expected this to be one of the more contentious battles in camp. And again, I realize this is just one day of observation. Things can obviously change. Hufanga has been in the system. George Odom is coming in fresh. It could be a night and day difference for him once it all clicks. Does it seem to you as if it's going to be a true competition, or does Talanoa Hufanga seem to be the clear leader at this point with a small sample size?
Small sample size. I've seen one practice. It almost seems like he's one of the more entrenched starters in the team.
Wow.
Yeah. And if you think about it, from those rookies last year, he might have gotten the most praise of any rookie from the coaches consistently. Nothing but, we really like him. And finding opportunities to get him on. I mean, they found more playing time for him than they found for Trey Lance last year.
They did.
And this offseason, what they did, they got rid of Tart immediately. I mean, they didn't get rid of him. He's a free agent, but it was like, they're not like holding on to Tart just in case, just to see what. They got rid of Tart. They brought in George Odom, who's never really been a starter, and they're like, we trust you, Trey. We're gonna have to see it from you. Talanoa, we trust you, and maybe there's a reason why I just really stuttered hecka hard there. It's okay, I caught it.
It was interesting to see Jimmy Ward talk about how many starts Hufanga had and then have to be corrected about how many, him being like, it just seemed like he was out there a lot. Like he was constantly at my side. It felt like he had 10 starts last year.
Yeah. So hopefully I'm not wrong about that. It was just a first impression, but I'm looking at him thinking, that guy looks like a vet. I'm not saying he plays like a vet, but he looks, look at his body. Definitely different than last year. Trey as well. Trey Sermon looks the same to me. Aaron Banks looks a little bit leaner. He looked good, and he's back on the left. So, I mean, I haven't seen him actually block anyone, but he looked leaner. He looked like he's in good shape. That's encouraging. Javon Kenlow just looks phenomenal. I mean, he really is huge. If his knee could ever just be cool, I do think he has a ton of talent. He looks like he's entering his third year. He looks like a third-year NFL beast. So that's another one.
Was there anyone, we're talking about physical jumps, but there's also the swagger jump, right? There's the comfort on the field. Did anybody make that swagger jump where you're like, oh, this dude's got some attitude this year?
Javon Jennings. Last year, Javon Jennings was like barely hanging on. And Mo Sanu was getting all these reps with the starters. On Tuesday, Mo Sanu's gone. Debo's not here yet. The starters are Ayuk and Jennings gets 5 targets. They go to him over and over. And again, like he's not going to get all the yak that Ayuk gets, but yak isn't a real big factor in practice. There's no tackling.
Right.
In practice, it's like, catch the ball, man. Can you help my completion percentage today?
Yeah.
And that's Jennings. He's huge, very big, long arms, and seems like he's been working. He's very consistent, stays healthy. Jennings.
I'm thrilled with the way he seems to have come into camp. I mean, that to have Debo and Ayuk as your 1 and 2, and then Jennings in there, not to mention what can Danny Gray add, what can Ray McLeod add. The top 5 in that wide receiver room really had me excited.
Absolutely. Ray actually made a good play. I was curious to see what do they do. How do they use Ray on day one? And it was only 7-on-7 mostly. So I think that the gadget stuff will be when they do 11-on-11 in preseason. But in 7-on-7, he contributed. Like, are you a real receiver? He ran a dig route, the 15-yard in, and caught the ball from Lance, out in front of it. It looked like didn't look like a gadget player to me. That's tough. That's tough. In traffic, moving across, safeties behind you. I mean, basically, I saw Dante Pettis struggle with that in the same setting and said, that's going to be a problem. Ray crossed that hurdle. No problem. No fear. And then he accelerated through the defense after. I mean, looked good to me. Yeah,
showed the dog mentality that clearly Kyle Shanahan wants in his wide receivers when they're going over the middle like that.
No doubt. So
was it a quick high and tight? That's I got to admit, I'm gonna have my eyes on Ray from that angle just because of the sheer number of fumbles. But after the catch, was it high and tight?
Oh, I didn't look. I'm not looking for that in practice because it's 2-hand touch essentially.
Yeah,
kind of 1-hand touch. They'll just come up and touch you like that.
Hey, as long as it avoids injuries in practice, I'm all for it.